Hey everyone, this is your host of the Startup Sense podcast, Jonah Lupton. Today we have a fabulous guest with us. It is Craig Fitzpatrick. He is the founder of a company called PageCloud, and they make publishing websites so easy and so beautiful, fast, efficient, everything that you're looking for. And we're going to talk to Craig about why he started this company and how things have been going over the last couple of years. They've raised about $7.5 million from a bunch of different investors. The company's based in Ottawa, Canada. And let's welcome Craig to the show. Craig, how are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome, man. Thanks for joining us. So talk to us about PageCloud. What do you guys do?
Well, PageCloud aims to fix publishing on the internet, which sounds very grandiose, but it's really a big usability problem. The internet is this amazing thing that's connecting about 3 billion people on the planet. But the people that are creating it are really sort of this technical 1%, people that understand things like HTML and CSS and JavaScript and domains and storage and servers, and there's just a whole bunch of technology in our way. And what we're aiming to do is really allow everybody to just open a browser, hit new page, paste some content in, drag some content in, interact with your browser exactly the way you would with any desktop publishing tool. And when you've got your content just the way you like it and you hit save, all of the technology is taken care of for you. We're really changing the nature of the browser.
So I remember 5 or 6 years ago, I wanted to put up my first website at jonahlupton.com. And, these drag and drop and easy to publish websites didn't really exist back then. So I had to pay a development company $5,000 to build me a personal website, customized on WordPress that I could update occasionally and post some videos here and there and send out, collect some email addresses. And you guys change all that, right? I mean, someone like myself would no longer have to go to a developer and spend $5,000. I could come to PageCloud and build my own custom website.
Absolutely. And, just to kind of drive that point home, I mean, I've been in the tech industry for a long time, about 25 years ago. And I remember before graphical user interfaces, when the first products like, Windows 1.0 came out and we all went to GUIs. What a tremendous thing that was. I remember the invention of desktop publishing when products like WordPerfect and Microsoft Word came out, and then later on they got polished into things like Keynote and PowerPoint. This visual content editing experience has been around on the desktop for 20 years. And as a technical guy, I mean, I knew how to do all the scary technical things to put up a website myself. I still hated it, but at least I know how to do it. And for years I used to ask myself, why is it so difficult on the web when we've solved this problem before on the desktop? And I think what happened for a whole bunch of historical reasons is that when the web took off in that sort of first .com boom, there were so many service providers out there happily charging hourly rates to put stuff up. Nobody was really focused on trying to make it so that everybody could do it. That would have been like giving up a revenue stream or something. And right now, putting stuff on the web is wholly owned by a large services ecosystem. And we're different. Our mission is to try and make the product so good that you just don't need anyone else to help you. You can just do it yourself.
Right. So, I mean, this is a product that's really geared towards those non-technical people that still want to be entrepreneurial.
Exactly. For now. And I know, I think that we're all becoming so much more digital, even on personal levels. And I think right now the world sees websites as these corporate things, that you're selling something through or that represent a corporate headquarters. But I think I look at the web as just a canvas. It's a place where all of the world's content is going. And I think that everybody, whether you're corporate or personal, should be able to just open your browser, create something, share it with the world. And it doesn't necessarily have to even be corporate. And it doesn't have to be for commercial purposes. It's just about sharing content.
So there are some other platforms similar to PageCloud. I could rattle off 5 or 6 of them, but I don't like mentioning competitors on the podcast. That's not very nice. But
Sure.
How are you guys different or better than some of them?
Well, there's really two kinds of categories of web content builders out there. The first is the traditional one. I'll call that the template-based solution. These are products like a WordPress or a Squarespace. They've been around for 10 or 15 years. And WordPress has got this really large ecosystem, and that's a pretty great thing. And Squarespace has beautiful templates. But they both suffer from the same fundamental problem, which is that you go shopping, you pick out a template or a design that you like, and you feel really good in the first 30 seconds, and you change a logo and you change some text, and you get it online. And it takes about 24 hours then for you to get frustrated the first time you want to go back and make a change. They just don't work the way we're all used to on the desktop with desktop publishing. They're not fluid. They're not changeable. They're very rigid and limiting. And so the upfront experience is kind of okay, but the ownership experience is horrible. And by contrast, we're a visual design category. So our upfront experience is very similar and hopefully a little better. But our daily ownership experience, every time you wake up and you think, oh, I just wish I could move that image 1 inch to the right. It just works so easily, like you can't even believe it. You have to see it to believe it.
So who are some of the, let's talk about marketing, right? I mean, how do you guys get this message out there? And who are you trying to reach, and what marketing channels are you using to reach them?
Well, when we first went to market about a year and a little bit ago, we thought that the audience that we chose to speak to, I guess you could say, was the professional designer, because we had some great tools like, the ability to copy and paste Photoshop layers out of a Photoshop document right into your browser, and it would all just work. And we thought this is a great experience for professional designers because they can start off in the tool that they love, which is Photoshop or any other graphic designer, any desktop tool. Copy and paste integration right with the browser is it's pretty awesome. And that was a never seen before capability. What we realized is the audience that really spoke to us and started picking up our product were the do-it-yourselfers, the small business owners who, frankly, are tired of dealing with service providers. They're tired of paying $5,000 to $10,000 up front, and they're tired of paying $100 an hour to make even the simplest change. Right. And so about halfway through our first year in market, we really, got the message. And so we started retuning little bits of the user interface to make them a little bit geared less for a pro Photoshop user and a little bit more towards a non-technical business owner. We started changing how we speak about the product and the stories that we were telling. So I guess you could say that was our first big pivot. And we've gotten really great response from this audience. How we market it, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, well, how we market it is a bit of a product of my experience as a guy who's been in startups for the last 25 years. PageCloud is the 7th startup that I've been a part of. It's my second time as a founder. And so I made a lot of mistakes over the years. And I've corrected some with PageCloud. One of the mistakes, that a lot of entrepreneurs make is they spend all of their money and all their time building a product. And then on launch day, they press a button and then they wonder why nobody's buying the product, because nobody knows about it. And they sort of missed the whole marketing boat. So we knew that going into this experience. So we started marketing 6 months before launch. And we did a really, gangbusters pre-sale campaign where for a 6-month period leading up to launch day, it was kind of like a Kickstarter campaign, but not really on the Kickstarter platform. What we did is we deeply discounted the product. We had a demo video. We promised early access. We were giving this founder member status. And that was gangbusters. We did $1.2 million US in pre-orders before launch day, which makes it one of the most successful SaaS pre-order campaigns ever run. And then as we went into our first year in market, the channels that we started off with were really digital advertising. And that also is a product of some startup experience because while it's sort of like the channels that you start a company with aren't necessarily the ones you finish a company with. And I liked advertising because it was a way that we could spend a buck, learn something, and get a buck back. And the machinery just operates very, very quickly in real time, which is great when you're trying to learn. You're trying to learn who your audience is, what messaging works, what channels work, etc. So we proved a bunch of things. We learned a bunch of things in our first year. And now we're going back and doing some of the things that every other startup does, which is search engine optimization and content marketing and email marketing and so forth. But those things take longer to build. And so we chose ad platforms as our go-to-market strategy.
And what's nice about your business model is once someone signs up with PageCloud and starts using the service, you probably have them stick around for a long time, right?
Exactly. There's this critical juncture of people start playing around with an editor and, like any business, they could possibly get distracted or go away and churn out. But once they get to that point where they've created something that they like and want to put online live, then we have a long-lasting relationship with that customer.
And it's funny what you said before. I actually own a dev and marketing agency. And, 5 or 6 years ago, we used to put a lot more money into the dev side of it and didn't have enough money left over for marketing. And I think it's flipped a lot. I think a lot of services are out there like PageCloud where you can launch your website or company with a hell of a lot less money going into dev, leaving you a lot more money for marketing. And I think that's important.
Yeah, that's a great insight. And I think hopefully that leads to a lot more successful entrepreneurial endeavors.
Too many entrepreneurs went out there, non-technical, hired a dev company, spent 90% of their budget, building whatever the website was going to be, and then they didn't have any money to tell anybody about it, and then they failed.
Exactly. It's the startup tale old as time.
This is Jonah Lupton, founder of the Lupton Group and host of the Startup Sense podcast. Are you struggling to find the right tech team to build your company's website or mobile app? Maybe you've developed a product but need help with your go-to-market strategy, including branding and marketing. Well, stop worrying, because my team at the Lupton Group can assist you with all of those needs. We specialize in helping entrepreneurs and startups of all sizes launch and grow their businesses. For a free consultation, you can email me at jonahlupton@gmail.com or visit our website at luptongroup.co. Talk to us, kind of going backwards here, but go back to the very beginning. When did you decide that you wanted to embark on this adventure with PageCloud? And did you raise money before you started building anything, or did you bootstrap in the beginning and then raise money? Maybe take us back to that.
Sure. I was head of product development for a friend of mine's company. It was in the social marketing space. The company is no longer operating. It was a 5-year journey, and Hootsuite kind of won that battle. But at the time, like every other startup, we were running our own website, and we were trying to figure out who our audience was, what our pricing was. We were A/B testing a whole bunch of stuff, and so like everybody, we had a need to change our website, pretty rapidly in an agile way. And like everybody, we were on WordPress. And it just used to drive me up the wall that every time we wanted to make what seemed to be a simple change, it was days and days of development effort. And I kept looking back at my experience on the desktop, because I used to do a lot of user interface design in Apple's Keynote, because it was just this really great, simple drag and drop vector tool. And it would spit out PNG image files. And so at least it saved me time in the design world. And what I could do is I could take those PNGs and then I would do the hand coding to put them online. So it sort of did half the battle. Now, at the time, this is going back 5 years ago, I think, Apple had a product called iWeb. And if you remember it, it was a free product that came with their home suite. And it was sort of like Keynote in terms of its usability, which is sort of like PowerPoint. But the difference is when you hit save, instead of saving a file, it would FTP a bunch of stuff to a server, and you could have a website. Now, it was a horribly flawed product. The code didn't work across browsers, and it was under-featured, and it was buggy, and a whole bunch of things. But the concept, I thought, was brilliant. And so I assumed, Apple being a big company, and they have some Pro Tool lineage, I thought somebody's got to be working on a Pro, like Visual Studio kind of version of this, and they're going to just drop it on the world one day. Well, I'd been using this product for a couple of years, and I was on the mailing list. And I got an email from Apple saying they were discontinuing that product. And I remember going home that night, and for the first time in 10 years, because I hadn't written code in about 10 years, I just poured a bottle of wine, and I rolled up my sleeves, and I started to relearn JavaScript. And I just started tinkering around out of personal interest. And I thought, wouldn't it be great if I could just have like a red square in a browser and drag it 1 inch to the right? And it started very, very small like that. And I just kind of tinkered away for a couple of years in my spare time. And the company I was with at the time, it hit hard times. We were winding it down. The entire team had been laid off. And I was trying to figure out if I was going to go get a real job for once in my life and work for a big company. And I just started showing this thing around, this hobby project, and people started losing their minds. And I realized this is something that's striking a chord with people. So there I was, kind of unemployed, with all of my peers unemployed as well. But I thought, guys, there's something here. And why don't I see if we can go raise a little bit of angel financing and get this thing going? And so there was 3 people that I'd wanted to hire from the previous company. And, they all had job offers and everything. But one of them and I went out and started raising some funding. And within 30 days, we'd raised our first $1 million in angel funding, which is pretty quick. And so we were able to make payroll in the first 2 weeks and pay the team. And everything just kind of snowballed from there.
And did you raise that money from U.S. investors, Canadian, or both?
The first round, it was in a dollars and cents basis. It was primarily Canadian, although we did have some great experienced folks out of the Valley. We have a Salesforce senior executive that was one of our very first investors. We have some LinkedIn executives. In Canada, we had some Shopify executives, and so some real SaaS lineage folks that knew the business model of SaaS, could look at the technology and see, yeah, there's really something here. And then there was a bunch of other, true angels where they didn't have a ton of money, but they believed in, the team, and they believed in the vision, and just said, what the heck, they wrote a small check. And so mad respect for those folks. And then we did 4 rounds of funding over a period of 2 years, and institutional investors got involved. Now, on a dollar basis, I would say most of the investment has actually come from the United States. In terms of number of investors, most of them are Canadian, but it's because there's a lot of small ones in there.
Awesome. Yeah, fundraising. I mean, when do you guys think you'll be raising your next round? You all set for a while?
We're set for a while, yeah. We closed our Series A last August. And so, it's usually kind of 2 years between milestones. So we've got some work to do to just, mature the business a bit. And then we'll probably be looking at our Series B milestone about 18 to 24 months from now.
Cool. Talk to us about some of the KPIs or metrics that you like to look at, and one that I love to ask. And if you want to share this information, fantastic. If not, I understand. But in terms of conversion rates, like for instance, for every 100 people that come to the PageCloud website, how many of them sign up for a free trial, and then how many of them convert from a free trial to a paid membership?
Sure. We're a highly metrics-driven company. I love the SaaS business model because it's so transparent. You can basically track everything. I don't even know how you run a company without these metrics. It just seems impossible. But we watch them all closely, and we're about 1.25 years into market right now. So like everyone, they started off pretty humble, but they got better over time, and they fluctuate during seasonality. So in our first year, we accumulated 15,000 paying customers in 130 countries, which is a pretty good growth rate. That slowed down a little bit on a percentage basis because it's kind of hard to keep that up, but still going well. What else? If SaaS metrics, the LTV to CAC ratio is one we always watch. It's just basically about spend less than you make, but invest heavily in growth. What was the one that you had asked me about, the particular metric?
Well, just the conversion rates of.
Oh, the conversion rate, yeah. So I think they're pretty good. We have a free trial now for 2 weeks, like everybody. But I'll tell you a story. We did that sort of opposite to everybody else, but we ended up coming full circle. Right now, it's something like 4% of visitors start a trial, which is pretty good. And then graduation rates having a trial, we're up around 50%, which is crazy. They're much less than now, but we're they ebb and flow,
I mean, 50% sounds very high. So, I mean, I assume that during that free trial, they see the value, it's compelling, and they just can't go without it.
Yeah, and it's a bit of a game. It's funny. It's almost like playing a video game. You've got all these levers and all these metrics, and so sometimes your conversion rate can be really great, and it's because you've really hit on a segment of the market or a channel that's really efficient at that time, and then that efficiency starts to peter out, and so you got to go looking for another channel, or you've bought some expensive traffic, but it converts really well, or conversely, you can go and buy a bunch of cheap traffic, but then your conversion rate drops. So it's always this game of trying to balance a whole bunch of things in midair and make sure that it's the overall output that you're trying to optimize for.
What levers have you guys pulled over the last year that did make a difference and help boost your, that sign-up percentage? Maybe it was lower than 4% and you were able to get it up to 4%. Anything kind of stand out that you guys did? Any changes that you made to the homepage or landing site?
I don't have the small sort of A/B test changes that my team has done at my fingertips, but I will say we had a very different way of coming into market. We did the pre-sale thing, which I told you about, and that was a really great success. And then when we pressed the live button, we didn't actually have a trial at all. Our viewpoint was we feel strongly about this product. We actually came out as one of the more expensive products in the category at $24 a month. There were lots out there that you could get for $5 or $10 a month. But we thought we've got a premium solution here, and people are going to be willing to pay a few extra bucks a month. And at the end of the day, $24 a month is not a lot of money. And so we didn't think there was as much price sensitivity in this market as a lot of people do. We also wanted to signal to people that we were different. And so I don't believe in just, giving stuff away and hoping that you'll get such ridiculous scale later that it'll all work out. We needed to make some money to keep investing. And so our numbers were okay then, and we thought, well, we probably should have a free trial at some point. And if we had done our number crunching, we thought if we do that, we could probably see a 2 or 3x lift in the top end of the funnel because more people would try it. And so we did that, and we were right. We saw about a three times lift. but we put the credit card form at the beginning of the trial. So to even try, we knew that you were someone who could possibly pay us at some point in the future. And that was our qualification thing. And so we did that, and we got a 3x lift at the top end of the funnel. But then, of course, our graduation rate fell a little bit because, people realize, well, I'm actually going to have to pay money at some point. We let that run for a couple of months, and then we thought we had this other hypothesis. Well, what if we take the credit card and move it to the end of the trial so that you truly can, get started with no friction, no credit card required. But if you like it, we will throw up the credit card form. And like we thought, we got another 3x lift at the top end of the funnel, and slightly less people ended up paying us on a percentage basis, but the sort of net throughput of accumulated customers stayed constant. So we thought that was a pretty good trade-off because it didn't really change the actual output of the customer accumulation that much, but it was getting us a lot more exposure out there. And we hope that that's kind of feeding word of mouth and also possibly some remarketing, because we know that sometimes people will start a trial just to try us out, and they may not have an immediate need to build a website. But hopefully 6 months later, when they realize, it's time for our annual refresh, they'll remember that PageCloud experience that they had.
Right. Yeah, I like it better with the no credit card required up front to sign up, and then you pay at the end of the 2-week trial. And assuming that someone builds a website on PageCloud and it solves a need for them, there's a pretty good chance, like you said. 50% of the people are coming back and starting a paid membership. So now, if I go to the website, you guys have some beautiful themes. You have a ton of third-party apps that you're able to integrate. So how big of a selling point is that versus, because I've used some of your competitors' sites, and they don't look nearly as robust as what you guys have to offer. Yes, they're cheaper, but you pay what you get for. If you pay $5 or $10 a month, you don't get a lot of these, these add-on features and integration. So, have you heard back from a lot of customers that they love these, these apps, that they can add them so easily?
Sort of. It's interesting. One of WordPress's big claims to fame is that they have a huge ecosystem, and there are, probably literally 100,000 widgets that you can integrate with and stuff. But if you look at the distribution or usage of those widgets, it's sort of like the top 20 that get all of the downloads, and the rest are noise. And so essentially their widget ecosystem is a bit of a dumping ground. And so we thought we were actually just going to handpick the first 60 or so that we think are useful, and we integrated with those. Now, the technical bits of it are that it's actually, PageCloud's kind of a platform, and so you can integrate with literally everything with a little bit of elbow grease. But we really wanted to make those first 60 or so just so easy and drag and drop. And so we'll expand on that later, but it's not our biggest priority right now because we feel like we've got real good functional coverage with the world's most popular widgets out there already. In terms of themes, same deal. Some of the larger, not all. Some of the larger players, like your WordPresses and your Wixes, have tons and tons and tons of themes to choose from. A lot of them are horrible, actually. You can spend a day whipping through Theme Forest looking at horrible, looking at themes. I'm kind of a design snob, so I like Apple and I actually like Squarespace a lot. They actually sort of bucked the trend in the sense that for years they've been the company with the least amount of themes, but all of them are beautiful. So you at least know if you go with a Squarespace theme, it's going to be beautiful. And we like that approach. So we have, I think, 17 that we ship with right now. We are going to be adding another 100 in this year, but that's a far cry from 100,000.
Right.
So we believe it's quality over quantity.
I've literally spent hours and hours at a time in Theme Forest looking for themes for WordPress sites. So I know exactly what you're talking about.
And that speaks to that speaks to the core problem, which is that the industry as a whole has tried to solve this problem of kind of individualization or personalization by saying, well, since we don't know how to make it easy enough for you to do yourself, what we're going to do is we're going to offer you a million choices. And that sounds good, but the problem is that as you're doing that theme shopping, at best you're going to pick one that's 60% of what you want. And so that's just a giant compromise. And our belief is different. We're going to show you far fewer choices, higher quality, but through the magic of our application, you actually get to finish it off and take it from maybe 60% of what you like right up to 90 or 100% of what you like.
What percentage of the PageCloud websites that are live right now have an e-commerce component to them?
I don't know that number off the top of my head, but I think it's very, very low. It would be
Okay.
certainly single digits, like, a couple of percent. And, I think there's a couple reasons for that. What we would be good for, like, we integrate with some e-commerce widgets, we integrate with Shopify and PayPal and a few other things. And using PageCloud for a store is good if you have maybe a couple of SKUs, a couple products. But if you have, dozens of products, you're realistically, you're better off going with a full-blown e-commerce system that's going to track inventory and shipping and a whole bunch of things. Because our product isn't really geared, it's not a specialized e-commerce platform. You might do some sort of like hobby sales with it. But I will say, if you look at the industry, the vast majority of the world's websites are not e-commerce websites. And that's a little bit counterintuitive because all we hear about these days is e-commerce. It's a very hot space.
Right.
But part of the reason, if you think about it, is, it costs you right now $5,000 or $10,000 to put up a custom site. So the only people that are willing to go through that hassle are commercial businesses, because they have a budget and they expect if they spend 10 grand, they're going to sell products, they're going to make that back, and they're going to make a profit. But when you make it so easy that anyone can just throw up a page on a whim, I actually think we're going to see an explosion of just content-based pages on the web, because the cost has gone from thousands and thousands of dollars to like $24 a month and a few minutes of your time.
Yep. Who do you think are, the people that are migrating over to PageCloud? Are these people that are putting up websites on their own for the first time ever, or are they migrating from, for instance, like a WordPress site or a competitor? Do you have a good feel for that?
Yeah, we watched that pretty closely, actually. If I remember the stats last time we checked, it's about 40% of our customers come straight from WordPress. They're literally abandoning WordPress because they're frustrated. Now, another interesting fact, and I think it's 7% from Squarespace and about 3% from Wix or something like that. So the first 50% of our customers really comes from other vendors. There's probably 20% that we have no idea where they come from. And then there's a 30%, which was surprising. These are people who are building a website for the first time. And we've surveyed a lot of these people, and we've closed like 30,000 conversations with our customers over the last 6 months. We really talked to these people. And what was coming through was, when I saw the PageCloud technology, it was the first time I ever felt confident enough to try it myself. So you said it, there's probably 300 or 500 million websites out there. Given all of the barriers of technology today, like, what do you think is going to happen when it becomes that easy? I actually think we're going to go through another kind of explosive period of growth of content on the web, because the barrier to entry has just plummeted.
I completely agree, right? Putting up a personal page, putting up a blog, putting up an online store is easier, faster, and cheaper than ever before. No doubt about that.
Exactly.
What's been the biggest challenge for you personally since you started this company?
Keeping up. I'm so used to having to push the cart. With this one, the cart started running away, and I had to run to catch up, which is a nice problem to have. We've got a ridiculously talented team here, and we move fast. I think we're just over 2 years old, but it sort of feels like we're about a 5-year-old company, just in terms of the learning that we've gone through and some of the evolutions that we've made. But continues to move fast. We are starting to build out the team now, so getting a bit more regimented, and things are calming down a little bit. But seriously, it's just hours in the day so far trying to keep up.
Awesome. Talk to us about your recruiting strategy up in Canada. Are you able to find the technical talent that you need? And, how competitive is the landscape up there? I mean, in terms of other startups looking to hire technical talent as well. I mean, how competitive do you have to be on salary and, bonuses and perks and stuff like that?
Well, everyone always asks about the technical talent, but I'm not sure if it's different in the States. But in Canada, we have a lot of technical talent. And so I would say, generally speaking, across the country, we're actually quite rich in that area. And it's pretty affordable. It's changed a little bit in the last year or so, particularly in my city, Ottawa, because we've had some real big companies move in. Shopify just went gangbusters, and they became a public company, and they hired a ton of folks. Amazon and Apple just moved into Ottawa, so they're each hiring 500 or 1,000 people. So that's tightened the screws a little bit. But we make it work, because we're 25 people, and we'll probably add another 25 in the next year and a half or so. So we're not talking about huge numbers. And being the small company, sometimes you can actually move people away from the big companies, because you have a more dynamic culture, and that's pretty attractive. But on the sales and marketing front, and for us particularly marketing, resources in Canada are noticeably lighter. And so I mentioned that we're looking at possibly a Boston office, being able to draw talent from that pool is one of the reasons behind that. And I think that in startup culture, there's so much focus on the engineering talent that I actually think it's probably about 50% misplaced. I really do think when you're building a startup from day one, half the energy should be going into marketing, even if you don't have a product yet, because there's things that you can do. You can test messaging, you can test audiences, you can test channels. There's so much to do. It's actually very much like R&D because marketing has changed so much. So it's getting more competitive, but it's still it's a good place to be.
Well, I've heard good things about building a company in Canada. Would you say that? I mean, is it very founder friendly or business friendly up there from a tax standpoint and other things?
From a tax standpoint, it's actually incredible. We have a whole bunch of programs that allow startups to get something like 60% of their R&D dollars back, or at least qualifying R&D, which is really crazy. All the whole, equity and stock option rules have been, rejigged to be pretty friendly from a tax basis. And there's lots of other government programs too about doing research or even sort of commercialization. So it's really, really tax efficient in that respect.
So this is your second time starting a company. You said you've been involved with, I think it was 7 startups altogether. What did you learn from your last company that made you a better founder on this one?
There's been a lot of lessons over the years. I think the 2 big ones that jump out here. One is that you don't wait until you launch a product to start marketing. So that whole start early thing is absolutely critical. I just think that's starting too late, meaning at launch day, is like the number one reason startups die. Last company, I think we undercapitalized. And so we had a great idea. We had a great team. We were not able to move fast enough. And the social media market kind of blew up and was over in the span of 5 years. Yeah. The whole market was just gobbled up. And so that was pretty fast because I lived through the whole .com boom and bust. And, e-commerce took 10 years to sort of develop and mature and to establish some winners. So 5 years, that was fast. And that kind of scared me. And so with this one, I thought one mistake we're not going to make is undercapitalize. We know we got to run fast. We got to sort of beef up. We don't want to go gangbusters, raise millions and millions of dollars and blow it out the window. So we're careful and we're cautious with our money. And luckily, the senior team has a lot of experience. So we've created our runway and we've created the space for us to be successful and still to figure out all of the things that we have left to figure out. So those would be the top 2.
Yeah, I think that has changed. I think what you said is totally dead on. I think, years ago, founders were afraid to tell anyone what they were doing until it was ready to show the world. And that I think that does turn into a losing strategy nowadays with, by the time everything's built, you show the world and it's kind of too late at that point. You're starting from zero in terms of customers.
Yeah.
What, if you could go back 2 years, what would you do differently?
Good question. It's tough to say because, it's not to say that we haven't made mistakes. But I almost kind of wouldn't unwind those because the mistakes are where a lot of the learning is. And I actually think they're unavoidable. So you could argue that, we didn't pick our target audience right when we first went to market. But who does? I mean, I actually think the norm is that the market entry point you choose is not the market exit point. So I think that's kind of normal. And, would I unwind that or do it differently? I don't know. I just sort of see it as the nature of the beast. What would I do? I don't know. There's lots of things I probably would have done differently in past companies. But with this one, I think we're all getting to benefit from having made those mistakes earlier in life.
Very true. I mean, less failure, not even failure, but I guess call it failure. Failure can be a good learning tool for sure. I mean, I've had way too many failures in my life. And I mean, if you walk away with, learning something new, in some ways it was worth it. I mean, it doesn't make up for the pain and lost money and lost time and all that, but it helps a little bit.
Exactly.
If you could be mentored by anybody, who would it be? Do you have a favorite CEO or entrepreneur that you like to follow?
Well, it would have been Steve Jobs for sure. I've watched every speaking engagement that guy did, and he was just a master at it. We've all heard the stories about him being difficult to work with, so that could have been interesting. But I'm a big Apple fan, at least sort of in the early years, because I think that they stood for a particular set of ideals that I also hold true, which is that technology can be and should be beautiful. It can be and should be absolutely usable by people outside of the technology sphere. There's an attention to detail, a pride of craftsmanship, and these are things that I just hold very dear. So I'm trying to build PageCloud in that image.
If Apple came around and wanted to purchase PageCloud, would you consider it, or are you intent on building an independent company?
I think I'm a pragmatist. And I don't really believe in absolutes. So I always just sort of look at a situation and try and balance it fairly and make a good decision. I do have other stakeholders now too. I'm not the only shareholder. I have some large investors. So that would be a group decision. In terms of brand, I think certainly Apple would be, the mothership that if I was going to go anywhere, that'd kind of be one of the brands I'd like. It'd be probably a tougher decision if it was, hey, here's a life-changing paycheck, but you don't really like the company that's making the offer. Right. That would be quite a moral dilemma.
Couple last questions here. How do you balance between growth and, cash flow or burn rate, however you want to call it?
I always like to have 2 years of runway in the bank, because I think that that's enough time for you to really figure out a few hard technology problems and a few hard marketing problems. And if you create that much space, you're probably good. If you create too much runway, then you're probably not running fast enough or growing aggressively enough. So that's kind of just from experience, I think that's my comfort level. And it's interesting, there's this one KPI which we watch. I was talking to my CFO recently about our cost of customer acquisition versus our lifetime value. And you'll often hear this expressed as, if you get a 3-to-1 in terms of how much you make versus how much it costs you to get a customer, that's pretty good. There are some companies that get to 5-to-1. And so I was sort of thinking hey, shoot for the moon, let's go to 5-to-1. And the interesting point he raised with me, which I think is fair, is there's an argument which says, at least early in a company's life, you kind of almost don't want it to be too efficient like that, because that means you're not aiming at growth aggressively enough. And so that was kind of an interesting school of thought, and I think that's about right. So balance actually is the word. I think it's about, in a market like this, there's going to be a couple of winners. You want to be growing as aggressively as you possibly can while preserving enough time for you to figure out a few hard problems along the way.
Are you guys close to that 3-to-1 number, the lifetime value of the customer versus the cost to acquire the customer?
We flirted with it this year, and it's actually a corporate goal to really get it, in hand consistently in 2017.
Nice. And kind of last question here: if you were to sit down with an aspiring entrepreneur, or someone's looking to start a company in the next 6 to 12 months, what advice would you give them?
I see a lot of entrepreneurs.
It's not a question, because it would depend on so many other factors, but.
Yeah, exactly. There's quite a nice little startup ecosystem here in Ottawa, and so I always thought of myself as the young guy in the room for so many years, and then one day I woke up being a veteran. So I was a little bit on the other side of the fence, and I do some advising these days, and things have changed a lot over the last 20 years. I think I still see some people really, really hesitating, which I guess I understand. It's awfully tough if you have, the spouse, the kids, the big car payment, the mortgage. There's a lot of financial risk in doing a startup. If you don't, I kind of say just jump in and try it. Your first one probably won't work statistically, but so what? That's where you're going to learn. Do it anyways. There's no other life that I would have wanted to live, so basically just do it. I think there's still a bit of a mystique around it, and people think these entrepreneurs are these magical creatures who somehow have these insights and they know things, and I wish I could be one. It's not that complicated. It's just you jump in and you learn as you go. The important ingredient actually is not to have all the answers up front, but to be really, really hungry. One of my favorite Steve Jobs-isms is I think he said something like, you have to have this really great wrong that you want to right. And it's almost like this, you either fall in love with the solution that you're trying to bring to the world, or you're just really, really angry at something and you want to fix it. And when you're not making much money, that's the fuel that keeps you going.
Such great advice. I feel like we should probably end it there, because I'm not sure how we could top that. Totally very, very valuable interview, man. Really appreciate your time today. Glad we got a chance to talk about PageCloud. And as I was telling you in the pre-call, I remember seeing you on stage a couple of years ago as you kind of introduced PageCloud to the world. And I just remember thinking, holy crap, like this is going to change website publishing forever. So
awesome. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're very welcome, man. And that stage, presentation that I saw, you told me it's gotten hundreds of millions of views, right?
Yeah. Now that's with a lot of budget behind it, but it's pretty cool. Like I've never certainly been a part of any video that's gotten that kind of viewer support.
That's pretty insane. And I mean, no way you could have predicted that up front. So I mean, I guess that just showed to the power of the presentation.
Yeah, that and figuring out marketing.
Oh, that for sure. Where'd you guys did you market it through YouTube or Facebook, or what was the strategy?
We found Facebook worked a lot, at least 2 years ago when we were doing this. It was a little bit of sort of greenfield. It's gotten a bit more expensive and difficult now because more people are in there, and more people always reduces the efficiency of a channel. But we just kind of hit it at this really great efficiency period, and we just pushed as much money through there as we could. I think we spent $1 million in that first year in Facebook ads alone.
Wow!
But we had that ratio in line such that we'd spend $1 and we'd get a few bucks back within 30 days. So we were just thinking, okay, push as much money through there as you possibly can.
Yeah, I mean, 3 to 1 is a good ratio. I mean, just keep on plowing the money in.
Exactly.
What is the best way for the audience to connect with you, find you online, or sign up for a free trial?
Easy. It's PageCloud.com. I'm on LinkedIn personally too, so that's where to find me. I tweet a little bit, but it's usually frustrations with airlines and cable companies. So you can follow me on Twitter too.
Awesome. I'll put all that stuff in the show notes. So thank you so much, Craig. Really appreciate it. Wish you the best. Hope you guys have a great 2017. Actually, let's close on this. What is your number one goal for 2017 with PageCloud?
It's to get ready for that hockey stick curve. We've got a few housekeeping items we got to do in marketing and product, but this is a year of sort of efficiency. We're going to knock these things off the to-do list, and then it's actually 2018. I think this thing is absolutely going to explode.
Phenomenal. Well, let's end it there, man. Wish you the best. I hope you guys get there. I'm guessing you probably will. You sound like one hell of a CEO and founder. So kudos to everything, and we'll talk to you soon, man.
Appreciate it. Have a great day. Thanks, man.
You too, buddy. Later.
Cheers.